This task is on your CIM Digital Diploma on the subject of driving digital experience, 2019 December, task 1B. This time assignment is about your loyal and engaged customers. One would say your golden base of customers. And for those customers, how do you create an exceptional custom experience, specifically a digital custom experience? Now, you got to gather your theory knowledge, your conceptual knowledge around the topic of customer loyalty, loyalty ladder, the engagement ladder by P.R. Smith, the technographics from Forrester Research, starting from inactive digital to digital creators, and also understand digital consumer behavior factors, starting from the digital consumer loop and even areas such as the degree of personalization, the degree of convenience, degree of content consumption, how the consumer behavior is digitally. That's the overall perspective to get yourself started. So to start this assignment, you might have a overall discussion about the subject of segmentation, the need for effectively do that. Of course, segmentation need to move to things like webographics, and from that segmentation, how do you focus on a persona? And of course, theoretically, you will have to reference these discussions and why that is important, and the need for you to also support that with some data and statistics of companies who are getting into sharper segmentation and persona development, and what type of data is there to show how they are effectively performing today. So that's like setting the context around it. The next step of the assignment is to identify your segment for the organization. So while you look at the segmentation variables and then break multiple segments and select a particular segment for your organization, some of the variables that you are going to discuss need to be justified using some research data. Example, if you're saying for, let's say, Cargill's, that it's a SEC D and C which is predominant, you will have to give some statistics. What is the size of the population that falls into that socio-economic classification of SEC, C and D, maybe even B. So that data to support your points are going to be important. If you are saying predominantly it's 40% women and 60% men who are part of that segment who deals with you, you got to give some indication based on some research findings. Some of this research might come from Sri Lanka, unlikely. You might even use some global law, regional research data to support it. You just can't just theoretically talk about segmentation and hypothetically tell your segment is men, women, have this lifestyle, have this economic status, income. You got to support it. Then secondly, you got to develop a persona. And most of you now know how the format of a persona could come to life. And in that, again, with regard to your segment, your persona, and your persona's goals, fears, aspirations, when you talk about those, again, you got to look at some research insights to support what you're finding. So example, we've discussed this persona of Frank the founder, aging entrepreneur who hasn't expanded his business to have professional management. And a typical businessman like that would have a fear of continuation of the business after he is not there or she is not there. Now that fear has to be researched, and to say that these type of sources highlights that this is a common issue with regard to family owned businesses of typical personas. So remember to support your personas with data and insight with credible sources. And these sources would generally come from global research agencies such as AC Nielsen, Deloitte, McKinsey, Forrester, Gartner, Accenture, you name it. They will be able to provide you some great published documentation. So the second part is, while you have understood the persona, now you got to look at some of the digital behaviors of that persona. So let's say you look at a millennial persona, there will be specific digital behavior of their content consumption, which is going to be, say, predominantly video based. Now that research is available on Deloitte, not only for US, but they will also have published data close to Sri Lanka, even to markets like India. Apart from content consumption, they might have other digital habits of how do they consume food and what type of sharing they do on social media with regard to the selfies or the pictures they take with food, or and what the timing of the social media and digital behavior, how people in the morning generally access their messenger, WhatsApp, before they get into their social media. So all these behaviors can be theoretically supported as well as research based information can be gathered. The next, when you set this up, is to come on the heading of your journey mapping, and you will map a journey including touch points. And then again, these touch points you have to be justified based on research to say what percentage of a millennial persona will be using YouTube as a research touch point or as a evaluation touch point before they buy a technological item or an electronic. How much of time do they spend on unboxing videos, etc. So again, the touch points in your journey, physical and digital touch points, you got to set it up based on some research findings. So use a lovely diagram, be creative, be original, and of course in a couple of paragraphs justify your thinking and your decisions. And remember, all of this has to be done by relating this to your loyal and engaged customers. So for an example, at the highest level of your engagement ladder, your customers might be looking to have very engaging discussions with you on social media. Now that has to be understood in certain touch points. At the highest echelon of your customer loyalty and engagement, customers might be co-creators for you. They might be involved in brainstorming sessions with you, idea generation sessions for you. So what touch points support that? So think through that. Benchmark what happens in the world, and also showcase what's the situation with your company. So final point, the examiner highlights touch points being trust points. So you got to do some research about how touch points are converted to trust points based on the credibility and the reliability of some of your touch points when people want to pay online, how secure and how much of secure emotional confidence you are giving at your checkout page with the types of evidence and some of the security features that is there. At the same time, some content, the authenticity of the content also will build trust, making that touch point a trust point. So find the relevant theory to support that. In fact, the assignment brief by the examiner is quite detailed, and you can use some of those headings to nicely structure it. But remember, you can't just theoretically support this. It's about supporting it with research for data and insights to the points that you are making. And this task is done in the form of a briefing paper. So you got to stick to that format as well. So there you go. That's your guide for your task 1.B in your DDE assignment for